My name is Nancy J. Browning, 32 years old. My brother and his wife lived in my house rent-free for years. While I was away, they carried out a renovation without my permission. Then they handed me the bills and called me stingy for not wanting to pay. There's a special kind of betrayal that only family can deliver, the kind that hurts because it's wrapped in years of shared history and supposed love, and the source of my particular lesson in familial treachery was a 2-story duplex on the east side of town. That building wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was my declaration of independence, my nest egg, the proof that I, a perpetually scrambling to make ends meet woman, could build something solid with nothing but stubbornness and exhaustion. I bought it 5 years ago. The paint was peeling, the plumbing was questionable, and the garden looked like a science experiment gone wrong, but it had good bones, and I saw potential where other people saw a problem. I also saw my younger brother Kai struggling. He'd just married Jordan, and they were living in a cramped, overpriced apartment, barely making ends meet with his part-time gigs, and Jordan mostly focused on her social media influencing aspirations, which hadn't quite taken off. When I first showed him the duplex, still a mess but mine, Kai gushed like I'd handed him a dream. "It's perfect," he said, eyes shining. "You're amazing." Jordan stood beside him and managed a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's very generous, Nancy," she said, polite in a way that felt practiced. I remember standing in that dusty upstairs unit, mentally measuring walls and costs, already forming the offer in my head because that's what I do when someone I love looks desperate. "The upstairs is self-contained," I told them, trying to sound casual even as the decision was already made. "2 bedrooms, decent kitchen space once I fix it up. Why don't you and Jordan move in? No rent. Just cover your own utilities, get on your feet, save up a deposit for your own place." Kai's eyes welled up like I'd saved his life. "You'd do that, really?" Jordan's smile tightened again, her voice sweet but careful. "We appreciate it." So they moved in, and I went back to my own tiny rental across town because the duplex wasn't a gift I could afford to live in yet. It was a machine I needed to build, a plan I needed to protect. I poured every spare cent and every spare moment into renovating their unit first, then the downstairs one, which I planned to rent out to cover the mortgage. I worked double shifts at the restaurant, took on freelance graphic design projects that had me staring at a screen until 3 in the morning, and my diet was basically coffee and determination. New clothes, a vacation, a weekend off, those were luxuries for a different lifetime. The duplex was my priority, my sacrifice, and in my head, it would all be worth it once the property started paying for itself. The first year, they were good. Kai would sometimes help with heavy lifting on my renovation days for the downstairs unit, and those moments made me feel like the arrangement was working. Like maybe I could help him without losing myself. Jordan would occasionally bring me a glass of lemonade, complimenting my progress with wide, seemingly sincere eyes. "You're making it so beautiful, Nancy," she'd say. "We're so lucky." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe gratitude could be real even when it was delivered with perfect posture and polished nails. But slowly, things shifted. Subtle at first, the kind of shift you don't notice until you're already standing in the middle of it. After I finished the downstairs unit and got good tenants and the mortgage was covered, property taxes and maintenance were still a beast, and I was still the only one thinking about that. One summer, their air conditioner broke. It was an older unit, sure, but I suspected it had been run nonstop at Arctic temperatures. Jordan called, breezy like she was ordering takeout. "The AC's dead. It's like an oven up here. When can you get it fixed?" "Oh, that's not good," I said, already calculating the cost. "Did you try resetting the breaker or checking the filter?" There was a pause like I'd asked her to perform surgery. "No, that sounds complicated. It's your unit, so we figured you'd handle it." I bit back a sigh. "Okay, I'll call a repairman." It cost me $600 I didn't really have, and they didn't offer to chip in. When I gently suggested maybe they could be more mindful of usage, Jordan looked affronted, like I'd insulted her. "We pay our utilities, Nancy. We should be able to be comfortable." Then Kai mentioned they were thinking of getting a dog, a big one, in my newly renovated unit with its freshly polished original hardwood floors. I tried to keep my voice even. "A dog." "Come on," he wheedled. "It's practically our home. Jordan's always wanted a golden retriever." "We talked about this," I said, heart tightening with that familiar feeling of being cornered into the role of the bad guy. "The lease agreement for the other tenants is no pets, and I'd prefer to keep it consistent. Plus the potential for damage." Kai sulked for a week. Jordan was icily polite the next time I saw her, like my boundaries were a personal betrayal instead of basic respect for property I'd bled for. Life kept happening. I got busier with my own career, slowly climbing the ladder at a marketing firm, and the tenants downstairs were quiet and paid on time. Kai and Jordan seemed settled. I'd drop by for holidays, birthdays, quick exchange texts. Everything good, I'd ask. Yep, all quiet here, sis, Kai would reply. Always cheerful, always a little vague. Jordan rarely initiated contact, and I told myself that was just her personality, her world, her content, her curated life that didn't include checking on the woman who owned the walls around her. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I was just too exhausted from building my own life to scrutinize theirs too closely. It had been a few months since I'd last dropped by, and with a rare Saturday off, I figured, why not? I grabbed a coffee and headed over with a little niggle of something I couldn't name sitting in my stomach. The little niggle grew as I pulled up to the duplex. From the outside, everything looked the same. My sensible, slightly faded blue paint job, the neat, if uninspired, flower beds I'd planted along the walkway. I walked up the steps to their unit and noticed the front door was ajar, just a crack. That was unusual. Kai was usually so particular about locking up. I could hear noises from inside, rhythmic thumping and a low hum like some kind of industrial fan, not sounds I associated with my brother's usual weekend routine of video games and napping. Kai, Jordan, I called out, pushing the door open a little further. The sight that greeted me stopped me dead in my tracks. My coffee cup slipped from my fingers, splashing lukewarm liquid down my jeans, and the entire front living area was different. Walls had been moved. Where my cozy, slightly worn but perfectly functional kitchen once stood, there was now an open-plan monstrosity. Gleaming white cabinets reached to the ceiling, accented with brushed gold hardware. A massive island topped with a slab of what looked suspiciously like Carrara marble dominated the center of the room. Stainless steel appliances, the kind with digital displays and price tags that made my eyes water, were built into custom cabinetry. It looked like something out of a glossy magazine, a style so far removed from my own practical taste it was almost comical, except nothing about it felt funny. My brain tried to catch up, tried to find a reasonable explanation, tried to make it make sense, but the thumping was coming from further back, and my feet moved like I was in a dream. I walked past the alien kitchen toward the main bathroom. The door was open, more marble. A freestanding soaking tub I knew for a fact cost more than my first car. A rainfall shower head the size of a dinner plate. My stomach turned as I stood there, looking at luxury installed into my property like I'd agreed to it, like I'd ordered it, like it belonged there. Oh, good. You're here. Jordan's voice cut through my daze, bright and cheerful, like she'd been waiting for me to arrive so she could unveil her masterpiece. She emerged from the master bedroom not in her usual yoga pants and oversized hoodie, but in a stylish linen jumpsuit, hair perfectly coiffed, face done like she was about to film. She was beaming, wide and self-satisfied, holding a sleek leather-bound folder in her hands like it was a gift. "Oh, what is this?" I managed, voice barely there. "Surprise," she chirped, gesturing around with a flourish. "We knew you've been so busy, Nancy, and this place was just, well, it was a bit dated, wasn't it?" So Kai and I decided to take the initiative. "A little refresh," I repeated, staring at the walls that had been moved, the counters that had replaced what I built, the fixtures that screamed money I never agreed to spend. This was a gut job. Jordan stepped closer, smile unwavering, and pressed the folder into my numb hands. "Here are all the invoices. We kept meticulous records. It came in just under $100,000. Not bad, right, for a full high-end remodel." The words didn't land right away. My mind refused them like a body rejecting poison. I stared at the folder, then at her face, then at the kitchen that didn't look like my kitchen. And somewhere in the back of my head, a slow, cold realization started crawling forward. Kai chose that moment to shuffle in from the hallway, looking sheepish but also expectant, like he was waiting for praise. He wouldn't quite meet my eye. "Oh, what have you done?" I asked, and my voice sounded hoarse even to me. "We've improved your investment," Jordan said, puffing up slightly. "You should be thanking us." "Thanking you," I repeated, and the shock began to wear off, replaced by something that started in my toes and rose through my body like ice. "You spent nearly $100,000 on unauthorized renovations in my house, and you expect me to thank you and pay for it." Kai's voice turned defensive, like he couldn't believe I wasn't instantly grateful. "Well, yeah, it's your property. It benefits you in the long run. Don't be so stingy, Nancy. We did all the hard work of managing the contractors and picking everything out. Stingy. After years of rent-free living, after everything I'd sacrificed to give them a leg up, the audacity was a physical blow. My face went hot, then cold, and I looked from Kai's evasive expression to Jordan's smug confidence, and I felt something shift in me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw that ridiculous marble-topped island through the brand-new window. Instead, a strange calm descended, very cold, very clear. I closed my mouth, took a slow breath, and looked down at the folder in my hands. I didn't open it. I see, I said, voice devoid of what I was actually feeling. I need to process this. Jordan's smile turned condescending, like she'd already won. We even picked finishes we knew you'd love. Eventually. Consider it our gift to your portfolio. My blood ran colder. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This felt like a move, like a plan, like something they'd rehearsed in their heads until they believed it was reality. I have to go, I said quietly, turning on my heel. I walked out, leaving them standing in the opulent ruin of what used to be my sensible, carefully managed investment property. The smell of fresh paint and new grout followed me out the door, and for the first time in years, it didn't smell like progress. It smelled like betrayal. The drive back to my apartment was a blur. I barely remember the traffic lights or the turns I've taken 1,000 times. I just remember the weight of that leather folder in my hands like it was a brick strapped to my chest, and the way Jordan said surprise, like she'd done me a favor instead of detonating my life. The moment I shut my front door, the calm I'd forced in their marble kitchen collapsed. I sank onto my sofa with the folder still clutched in my grip, and the numbness gave way to a tremor that started in my fingers and spread through my whole body. Betrayal wasn't just a feeling, it was physical, a raw ache under my ribs that made it hard to breathe. I replayed it over and over, Jordan's beaming face, Kai's sheepish posture, the invoices like a punchline, and then that word, stingy, thrown at me, like I'd refused to lend them a few dollars instead of refusing to bankroll a 6-figure fantasy. 5 years. 5 years I'd given them a home, a chance, a runway, and they repaid me by bulldozing my boundaries and expecting applause. At first, my mind kept trying to make it accidental, a misunderstanding, a stupid impulsive mistake. But the more I thought about it, the more impossible that felt. A renovation like that wasn't a weekend project. Walls moved, plumbing rerouted, electrical redone, high-end appliances custom fit, contractors scheduled, materials ordered. That wasn't panic or passion. That was planning. Then a different thought surfaced, sharp enough to cut through the shock. Jordan's taste was expensive, but Jordan's favorite thing was looking expensive, and she never did anything without thinking about how it would look. She didn't just wake up one day and decide to drop nearly $100,000 on marble and gold hardware. She would have had spreadsheets, mood boards, quotes. She would have had a whole glossy little universe built around it, long before I walked in and spilled coffee down my jeans. I remembered an offhand comment she'd made months ago at a rare family dinner, swirling her wine like she was filming a scene. "We're just bursting at the seams in that little kitchen," she'd sighed dramatically. "It's impossible to entertain properly." At the time, I rolled my eyes and dismissed it as typical Jordan hyperbole, but now it felt like a breadcrumb. I grabbed my laptop. Jordan's public social media was a perfectly curated lifestyle feed. Nothing messy, nothing unplanned, nothing that would reveal a full demolition happening inside a property she didn't technically own. There were no contractor shots, no dust, no before and after reels, which told me something else. She was hiding it. Not from followers, from me. And then I remembered something Kai had said once with a half-embarrassed laugh, like he was complaining, but also proud of her. "Jordan keeps these vision boards," he'd told me, "like folders for everything. She's got this cloud thing, always saving ideas." He'd said it like it was harmless, like it was cute. A cloud storage service with the cutesy animal logo. I knew the one. I also knew something else. Jordan was predictable. She used the same passwords for everything because she believed her life was too curated to ever get messy. It was a long shot, a desperate, ethically murky stab in the dark, but I was past worrying about being polite. I knew their wedding anniversary. I knew the name of the fluffy white cat Snowball that Jordan doted on, the cat I'd expressly forbidden in the unit, a rule they'd clearly ignored. I tried a few combinations. Anniversary date plus Snowball, Snowball plus anniversary, then Snowball followed by their wedding year. Bingo. The screen shifted, and suddenly I was in. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from triumph, from disbelief. A folder list appeared. Most of it looked harmless at first. vacation ideas, recipe collections, influencer collabs, dreaming. Then I saw it, a folder titled like a joke that wasn't funny anymore. Our dream home project. My breath hitched. I clicked it. It was all there. Subfolders neatly organized like she was managing a corporate campaign instead of plotting inside my property. Kitchen inspiration, bathroom finishes, contractor quotes, architectural drawings, detailed plans of my upstairs unit transformed into their luxury palace. There were invoices, dozens of them, some marked paid from an account I didn't recognize, likely joint savings they'd been pouring into this instead of, say, a deposit for their own place like I'd intended. Then I found the folder that made my hands go cold. Comms. Inside was an email draft addressed to a main contractor dated 6 months prior. It was from Jordan, and it wasn't vague. It wasn't confused. It wasn't hopeful. It was confident, structured, and damning. She talked about managing initial deposits, and then, like it was already agreed, wrote that the final balance would be settled by the property owner, my sister-in-law, once the project was complete and she was presented with the full scope of the value-adding upgrade. She even added, "She's very supportive of us making the space our own." Supportive, value-adding, upgrade. The words made my stomach twist because they weren't written for me. They were written about me, like I was a predictable outcome, like I was a line item, like I was a bank that could be pressured into compliance. My hands shook so hard I could barely control the mouse. This wasn't entitlement. This was premeditation. This was a con, months in the making, designed to trap me with shock and family pressure and guilt. They didn't just assume I'd pay. They planned on it. They counted on me not wanting conflict, not wanting to be the villain, not wanting to tear the family apart over money. The hurt didn't disappear, but it was swallowed by something harder. Fury. The kind that settles deep and quiet and steady. The kind that turns tears into decisions. I grabbed my phone and called Amara. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, you okay?" "You are not going to believe what just happened," I said, and then I laid it all out. The surprise visit, the marble monstrosity, the folder of bills, Kai calling me stingy, Jordan smiling like she'd won. And then the part that made my voice go flat. "I found their plans, Amara. They've been plotting this for at least 6 months." There was a long silence on her end, the kind where you can hear someone processing how bad it really is. Then she exhaled like she was trying not to scream. "No freaking way," she breathed. "Nancy, that's not just rude. That's fraud with a side of delusion." "Tell me about it," I said, staring at the email draft on my screen like it might change if I looked away. "Okay," Amara said, and her voice shifted into that practical, take-control mode she only uses when someone's about to be swallowed by something. "First, you are not paying a single cent. Not one. Second, you need a lawyer. Like yesterday." "I know," I said. And the truth was, the thought had already begun to form the moment I saw that comms folder. Because this wasn't family drama anymore. This was business. This was my property, my financial future, my independence, and they'd tried to hijack it. Amara didn't hesitate. "Stephen Norris," she said. "He's a shark, but he's fair. Property and contract disputes. He'll eat them for breakfast." The name landed like a lifeline. I wrote it down. My hands were steadier now, not because I was calmer, but because the fog had cleared. They wanted to play me for a fool. Fine, I'd learn the rules. I booked an appointment with Stephen Norris for Monday morning, and as I clicked confirm, my phone buzzed with a new text from Jordan, breezy and cheerful, like we were discussing brunch plans. "Hey Nancy, just wondering about that final payment. The contractor for the countertops is asking. Let me know when you can transfer." There was even a smiley face. I stared at it for a long moment, then set my phone down gently on the table like it was something dirty. They were getting impatient. They thought my silence meant I was folding. They were already reaching for phase 2, the part where they'd corner me with deadlines and pressure and family guilt until I caved. They had no idea what I'd found. They had no idea what I was about to do. Stephen Norris's office looked like the opposite of chaos. Clean lines, muted tones, glass and steel, and quiet confidence. It felt like stepping into a space where emotions didn't run the room. Facts did. I needed that. Because the moment I sat down across from him and placed the printed screenshots of Jordan's dream home project on his desk, I realized how badly I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. He listened without interrupting while I walked him through everything. The rent-free arrangement, the years of renovation, the surprise visit, the marble kitchen, the folder of invoices, Kai calling me stingy, Jordan's smile. Then I slid the printed email draft across to him. He read it once, then again. His jaw tightened slightly, just enough for me to notice. "Miss Browning," he said calmly, folding his hands, "this is not a misunderstanding." The validation hit harder than I expected. "They had no legal right to alter your property without explicit written consent," he continued, "and they certainly have no standing to demand reimbursement for changes they made unilaterally. This email alone demonstrates premeditation." The word settled into me like a stone in still water. Premeditation. Not carelessness, not enthusiasm, strategy. "So I don't have to pay?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Absolutely not," he said. "In fact, you have several options. You could pursue damages for unauthorized alterations. You could evict them for breach of tenancy, or—" He paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "You could leverage this." "Leverage how?" He leaned back. "They've invested significant capital into improving your asset. Illegally, yes, but the improvements exist. Depending on market conditions, your property may have appreciated substantially." That thought hadn't fully formed in my mind yet. I'd been so focused on the betrayal that I hadn't considered the numbers. He was right. Marble and structural redesign weren't reversible without cost. The question wasn't whether it was expensive. The question was what it was worth now. "You're saying I could benefit from their stupidity," I said slowly. "I'm saying you should understand the full value of your position before reacting emotionally." It wasn't what I wanted to hear. It was better. Because somewhere beneath the hurt, beneath the rage, a new feeling was emerging. Control. Back at home that afternoon, my phone was already buzzing. Jordan again. "Contractor for the lighting is getting pushy. We really need that transfer." I didn't reply. 2 days later, another text. "Nancy, this is getting awkward. Can you at least give us a timeline?" Then something else happened. My cousin Sarah posted a photo online, captioned, "Housewarming at Kai and Jordan's gorgeous new place. So obsessed with the kitchen." In the background was my marble island, my cabinetry, my property. They weren't just planning to bill me. They were already claiming it publicly, as if they owned it, as if I was the silent investor in their influencer aesthetic. That was the moment the last piece of doubt evaporated. Then my mother called. "Nancy, darling," she began in that soft, mediating tone she reserves for smoothing over family disasters. "Kai called. He's very upset. He says there's been some misunderstanding about work they did on the house." I kept my voice level. "They gutted my property and expect me to pay nearly $100,000 for renovations I never approved." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she sighed. "Jordan may have gotten carried away, but their intentions were good. It does sound beautiful. Can't you just work something out? Maybe split it. For peace." For peace. That word had been weaponized in my family for years. Peace meant I absorb the blow. Peace meant I accommodate. Peace meant I pay. "Why, there's more to this than Kai told you," I said carefully. "I'm handling it." She hesitated. "Just don't do anything that will fracture things permanently." The irony was almost unbearable. They'd fractured it already. I was just deciding whether to let it stay broken or reshape it on my terms. The next morning, Jordan sent another message. "Hey, since the main bath turned out so well, we were thinking of doing the guest bath to match. Keep the flow. What do you think about a clawfoot tub?" I actually laughed out loud. They were planning phase 2. They truly believed this would end with me writing checks. That afternoon, I called a certified appraiser, Leah Jensen. I didn't tell Kai or Jordan. I met Leah at a coffee shop and explained the situation carefully. My tenants, who are family, undertook extensive renovations without my consent. Her eyebrow arched. "Unauthorized renovations. High-end," I clarified. "Professionally done. And you need a valuation reflecting the current condition." "Exactly." Leah was discreet. She visited while they were out. She called me that evening. "Well, Nancy," she said with professional neutrality tinged by surprise, "your tenants have expensive taste and competent contractors. The value increase is significant." "How significant?" She emailed the report. I opened it. The duplex was now valued nearly $150,000 higher than when I purchased it 5 years ago. I stared at the number for a long time. They'd spent close to $100,000 trying to trap me, and in doing so, they'd gifted me equity. The irony felt sharp and almost poetic. That evening, my phone rang. Kai. His voice was softer than usual, almost syrupy. "Hey, sis, listen. I wanted to apologize about everything. Jordan just gets these ideas, you know. She runs with them. We both got carried away." I said nothing. "We were thinking maybe we could talk about it. Maybe we contribute a little something. You know, meet halfway." Halfway. After they tried to drop the entire bomb on me. I could hear whispering behind him. Jordan coaching. This wasn't remorse, it was reconnaissance. Of course, I said evenly. We should talk. It's a significant situation. Relief flooded his tone. Great. When are you free? Next Saturday, I replied smoothly. 11 a.m. at the house. We'll discuss its future. There was a brief pause. He hadn't expected that wording. Sure, he said finally. I hung up with a slow exhale. They thought they were pulling me back into the fold. They had no idea they were walking into a room where the rules had already changed. The week leading up to Saturday felt different. Not frantic, not chaotic, strategic. For the first time since I'd walked into that marble ambush, I wasn't reacting. I was positioning. I met Stephen again, this time with Leah's appraisal report printed and tabbed. He studied the valuation carefully, then looked at me with something that almost resembled approval. They improved your asset, he said. Illegally, yes, but materially. You now control the leverage. We discussed options in detail. Eviction, damages, settlement. But the idea that made the most sense wasn't about punishment. It was about math. If they believed they had turned my duplex into a luxury showcase, then we would treat it like one. 2 documents were drafted. The first was a new lease agreement. Clean, professional, reflecting the current fair market value for a newly renovated 2-bedroom luxury unit in that neighborhood. $3,500 a month, a number far above what they were paying now, which was nothing. The second was an offer of sale, a straightforward purchase proposal for them to buy the property at the new appraised value, $475,000, their marble, their gold hardware, their upgrades, their price. I slid the papers into a manila folder and sent a simple calendar invite. Meeting to discuss property matters. No emotion, no explanation. Saturday morning arrived bright and calm, the kind of weather that makes everything look deceptively peaceful. I got to the duplex an hour early. I let myself in using my key. The smell of new grout and paint still lingered faintly. I walked through the transformed space slowly this time. The kitchen gleamed. The marble reflected light in clean white slabs. The appliances hummed quietly. It was beautiful, objectively, cold and expensive and meticulously styled. It looked like something Jordan would post with a caption about manifesting abundance. It did not look like the home I built. I set my folder down on the island and poured myself tea using their absurdly advanced kettle. I sat at the marble counter that had replaced my modest laminate one and waited. At precisely 11, I heard their car door slam. Footsteps on the steps. A knock. Come in, I called evenly. Kai entered first, shoulders slightly hunched. Jordan followed. Perfectly styled as always, expression composed and faintly triumphant. She glanced at the folder on the counter, and I saw it in her eyes. Expectation. She thought this was the moment I would cave. Thanks for meeting, she said brightly. We're so glad we can finally sort this out. Of course, I replied. Have a seat. They sat at the bar stools like they owned the place. Jordan leaned forward first. So, the kitchen, right, it's amazing. It finally feels like a real home. It's certainly different, I said. Different in a good way, she pressed. Kitchens and bathrooms sell houses, Nancy. We basically future-proofed your investment. Kai chimed in, emboldened. We put a lot of work into this. Managing contractors isn't easy. I nodded slowly. You've certainly put work into it. They waited, smiles tight, almost vibrating with anticipation. I placed my hand on the folder and opened it deliberately. First, I said calmly, sliding the appraisal report across the marble toward them, I want to thank you. Jordan's smile widened slightly. Your renovations have significantly increased the market value of my property. This is the official appraisal conducted last week. Kai frowned in confusion. Jordan picked up the report, eyes scanning quickly. I watched the shift as the numbers registered. And, I continued smoothly, sliding the next document across, effective the 1st of next month, your rent will reflect the current fair market rate for a luxury unit of this caliber. I let the number sit there. $3,500 per month. The silence snapped. What? Jordan said sharply, her composure cracking. It's the current market rate, I replied evenly. For a unit with marble countertops, high-end appliances, custom cabinetry, and premium finishes. Kai's face went pale. We can't afford that. Then, I said, sliding the third document across the island, you have another option. You can purchase the property from me. Given your emotional attachment and your substantial investment, it only seems fair to offer it to you first. Jordan snatched the offer and stared at the price. $475,000. You can't be serious, she whispered. I'm very serious, I said. This is outrageous, she snapped, pushing back from the stool. We did all the work. We paid for it. You made improvements to my property without my consent, I corrected calmly. Improvements I never approved and never agreed to finance. Kai's voice wavered. We thought you'd see the value. I do see the value, I said. That's precisely why the rent reflects it. Jordan's face flushed red. You're extorting us. I raised an eyebrow. You presented me with a six-figure invoice for renovations you never had permission to start. I'm offering you fair market terms based on the reality you created. You're evil, she spat. This is our home. No, I said quietly. This is my house. The words landed like a door slamming shut. You have 30 days, I continued, to sign the new lease, accept the purchase offer, or vacate. Kai looked like he'd been punched. You'd make us homeless. I'd make you responsible, I replied. Jordan's eyes blazed with fury and panic. We're family. You should have remembered that before you drafted emails promising contractors I'd cover your bills. The color drained from Kai's face. I stood, gathering my copies of the documents. You have 30 days. I walked toward the door, leaving them standing in the kitchen they'd built to trap me. Behind me, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the silence of realization. The first 48 hours after the meeting were quiet, almost eerily quiet, like the air before a storm. Then the storm hit. My phone started buzzing before sunrise on Monday. Kai, missed call, then another, then Jordan, then a string of texts that shifted tone every few hours like they were trying on different costumes. First came outrage. You can't legally do this. We invested in that place. We have rights. Then came indignation. This is so unfair. You're punishing us for trying to improve your property. Then came the pivot. Okay, maybe the rent is high. Can we negotiate? Maybe we pay something small toward the renovation and you keep the arrangement the same. Then finally, desperation. Please, Nancy, we made a mistake. We'll do anything. I didn't respond. Not emotionally, not impulsively. Every communication went through Stephen. Every message was saved, every voicemail archived. They weren't dealing with a sister anymore. They were dealing with a property owner advised by counsel. Jordan tried another tactic. She began posting vague messages online about toxic family members who punish ambition and people who hate seeing you level up. The comments section filled with sympathetic emojis from followers who had no idea she was living rent-free for 5 years and had tried to ambush her sister-in-law with a six-figure invoice. Kai, meanwhile, swung wildly between pleading and resentment. We'll be homeless, he said in one voicemail, voice cracking. You're choosing money over family. That line almost worked. Almost. Because that's the script I'd always been handed. The one where I'm the stable one, the accommodating one, the one who absorbs. But this time I rewrote the script. My parents called again. My mother's voice was tight with worry. Nancy, this is getting ugly. Kai says you're refusing to compromise. Did he tell you about the email draft? I asked calmly. There was silence. The one where Jordan told the contractor I'd settle the final balance once I saw the value-adding upgrade. Another silence. I'm sending you everything, I said. Every invoice, every plan, every message. I emailed them the entire folder I'd pulled from the cloud. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't editorialize. I let the documents speak. My father called me later that evening. He doesn't call often. I didn't realize it was that deliberate, he admitted quietly. There it was, the crack. They weren't surprised I didn't approve, I said. They were surprised I didn't fold. For the first time in my adult life, I heard disappointment in my father's voice that wasn't directed at me. Meanwhile, the financial pressure started tightening around Kai and Jordan. They couldn't afford $3,500 a month. Not even close. They applied for loans. Denied. They approached relatives quietly for help. Word had already spread. No one wanted to underwrite a marble disaster. Jordan attempted to contact Stephen directly, which did not go well for her. She tried to argue that they'd increased my equity and therefore deserved reimbursement. Stephen's response was surgical. Improvements made without consent are not compensable at the discretion of the improver. You assumed risk. That word again. Risk. They had gambled I would fold. On day 20, the contractor for the cabinetry filed a notice threatening to pursue unpaid balances. Apparently, Jordan's meticulous record-keeping didn't extend to settling every invoice once she realized I wasn't writing checks. Panic escalated. Kai showed up at my apartment unannounced that night. He looked different, thinner, tired. We can't fix this, he said quietly. You could have avoided it, I replied. We thought you'd see the vision. I almost smiled at that. You never asked if I wanted your vision. He ran a hand through his hair. Jordan thought if it was already done, you wouldn't tear it out. You wouldn't want the conflict. There it was, the strategy in plain language. You thought I'd choose silence over boundaries. He didn't deny it. We were trying to build something, he said weakly. At my expense. He had no answer. On day 29, a moving truck pulled up to the duplex. I didn't go. I didn't need to. Stephen had already ensured the notice to vacate was enforceable and documented. The contractor's liens were their problem, not mine. The property was legally mine in its current condition, and any unpaid subcontractors would pursue them, not me. Amara came with me the next afternoon for the final walkthrough. The unit was immaculate, marble polished, floors spotless, every appliance gleaming like it was staged for sale. It felt empty in a way that was almost theatrical. This is surreal, Amara murmured, running her fingers along the countertop. They really thought this would work. They thought I was predictable, I said. We checked every room, no damage, no sabotage, just absence. And for a moment, standing in that oversized kitchen, I didn't feel victorious. I felt different, older, clearer. The marble didn't represent their ambition anymore. It represented their miscalculation. They had built something beautiful in the wrong direction. I put the unit on the rental market the very next morning at the full $3,500 rate. No hesitation, no discount. If they wanted luxury pricing, the market would decide whether it was justified. It didn't take long. Within 5 days, I had 3 serious applications. By the end of the week, a young surgeon and her architect husband signed a 2-year lease without blinking at the rent. They loved the open layout, the marble, the rainfall shower. They called it elevated. I almost laughed when I heard that word. Elevated. Yes, it was elevated, just not in the way Kai and Jordan intended. The first rent check cleared, and for the first time in years, my savings account moved in a direction that didn't feel like survival. It felt like breathing room. The duplex was no longer a fragile project I was protecting with exhaustion and coffee. It was stable, profitable, strong. Meanwhile, through the family grapevine, I started hearing updates. Kai and Jordan had scrambled to find another place in under 30 days. The only option they could afford was a cramped 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, the kind of place they would have mocked 5 years ago, the kind of place with thin walls and laminate counters that peeled at the corners. The irony wasn't subtle. Worse, the contractors they'd hired weren't patient. Some invoices had been partially paid, others had not. Jordan's meticulous spreadsheets didn't change the fact that vendors expected cash, not curated emails. I heard one contractor had threatened legal action. Another had already sent a formal demand. Debt piled fast when you tried to build a dream on someone else's foundation. Kai called once more about 2 weeks after they moved. He didn't argue this time. He didn't accuse. He just sounded tired. Was there any other way? He asked quietly. I considered the question longer than he expected. There was a way where you asked, I said finally. There was a way where you respected the line. He exhaled. Jordan thought if we made it undeniable, you wouldn't want to undo it. I didn't undo it, I replied. I adjusted. There was a long silence. I didn't think you'd go this far, he admitted. I didn't think you would either, I said, and I meant it. After that call, something shifted in the family dynamic. My parents stopped pressuring me to compromise. My mother still tried to soften things during family dinners, suggesting maybe everyone could move forward. But the tone was different now. Less insistent, more cautious. I'd sent them the evidence. They had seen the 6-month paper trail, the dream home project folder, the email draft promising I'd foot the final bill. Even my father, who usually defaulted to neutrality, had grown quiet about the whole situation. The unspoken truth hovered in every room we shared. Kai and Jordan hadn't just made a mistake. They'd tried to outmaneuver me. Jordan, of course, didn't accept defeat quietly. She pivoted online, crafting a narrative about losing everything but gaining clarity. She spoke about toxic support systems and lessons in independence. If you didn't know the full story, it sounded almost noble. But the comments eventually turned sharp. Someone asked why she had unpaid contractor disputes. Someone else mentioned a mutual cousin had heard about the marble situation. Curated lives don't handle cracks well. Behind the scenes, I heard their marriage was straining. Financial stress does that. Resentment does that. When the fantasy collapsed, the blame had nowhere to go except inward. Amara asked me once over dinner, "Do you feel bad?" I thought about it carefully. I feel sad, I admitted, but not guilty. There was a difference. I didn't celebrate their struggle. I didn't relish their apartment downgrade or their debt calls. But I also didn't rush in to fix it. That was the old version of me. the accommodating one, the one who kept peace at personal cost. This time I let consequences land, because that was the real shift. For years, I had believed being generous meant being flexible. That helping meant absorbing discomfort quietly. That family meant compromise without calculation. But generosity without boundaries is just permission to be used. They didn't fall because I pushed them. They fell because they assumed I wouldn't step aside. The duplex settled into its new rhythm quickly. The surgeon and her husband treated the space with quiet respect, and for the first time since I bought the building, I didn't feel like I was guarding it from the inside. The rent covered the mortgage, the taxes, the maintenance, and still left room for growth. I started paying down my own debt faster. I replaced my ancient laptop. I even booked a weekend away without calculating whether it would cost me sleep later. On paper, it was a win. But family dynamics don't exist on paper. The first holiday dinner after Kai and Jordan moved out was stiff and carefully staged. My mother overcooked the roast, a sign she was distracted. My father asked about the tenants downstairs in a tone that was almost respectful. Kai showed up late. Jordan arrived perfectly dressed, but quieter than usual, her smile tight. No one mentioned marble. No one mentioned rent. But the tension sat at the table with us like a fourth sibling. At one point, my mother tried to lighten the mood. "Well, at least the house looks beautiful now," she said weakly. Jordan's jaw flexed. I took a sip of water before answering. "Yes, it's performing very well." Kai avoided my eyes. Later that evening, as people cleared plates, he stepped outside onto the porch with me. The air was cold and sharp. "She's blaming me," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not stopping her. For not negotiating better. For not winning." Winning. That word landed harder than I expected. "Was that what this was?" I asked. "A game?" He didn't answer directly. "She thought if it looked too good to undo, you'd feel embarrassed to tear it apart." "I wasn't embarrassed," I said. "I know," he replied. "That was the problem." For a moment, I saw the younger brother who once helped me haul drywall and laughed at my terrible cooking. But then I remembered the email draft, the word supportive, the assumption that I would finance their ambition without consent. "You could have stopped it," I said quietly. He nodded once. "I didn't think you'd actually fight." There it was again, the expectation, the assumption, the belief that my desire for peace would outweigh my desire for respect. Jordan came out onto the porch before he could say anything else. "We're leaving," she announced, voice clipped. As they walked to their car, I realized something important. They weren't just upset because they lost the house. They were upset because the story didn't end the way they'd scripted it. I hadn't played the accommodating benefactor. I hadn't swallowed the bill. I hadn't apologized for setting a boundary. I'd forced them to confront a mirror. A few weeks later, I got an unexpected call from one of the contractors they'd hired. He wanted to confirm that I had not authorized the renovation and had not agreed to cover unpaid balances. Stephen handled it swiftly, providing documentation. The legal trail was clean. The contractors pursued Kai and Jordan directly. More debt, more pressure. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Jordan had tried pitching a Renovation Journey brand deal to a home goods company, framing the duplex makeover as their own property. The deal fell through when proof of ownership was requested. Influencer gloss doesn't survive paperwork. The cracks widened. One evening, months later, Kai called again. This time his voice wasn't pleading. It wasn't angry. It was just tired. "We're separating," he said. I closed my eyes briefly. "I'm sorry." "She says the stress changed me," he continued, "that I didn't protect her vision. I thought about the vision board folder, the comms draft, the marble. Did you protect it?" I asked carefully. He didn't respond. Silence stretched between us. "I never wanted this to end like this," he said finally. "Neither did I replied. "But it didn't start where you think it did." He exhaled slowly, like he was finally understanding something that had been obvious all along. After that call, the anger I'd carried dulled into something softer. Not forgiveness, not yet, but clarity. They hadn't just wanted a renovated kitchen. They wanted control of the narrative. They wanted to prove they could outmaneuver the quiet, practical sister who built things brick by brick. They wanted to look clever. But clever without consent is just manipulation in better lighting. And manipulation collapses when the person being manipulated refuses to cooperate. Time has a way of sanding down sharp edges, but it doesn't erase the lines that were carved there. Months passed. The duplex continued doing what it was always meant to do, generating steady income, building equity, standing solid and indifferent to the chaos that had once filled its walls. I started sleeping better. That was the first real change I noticed. Not because the money was flowing differently, but because I no longer carried the quiet fear that someone inside my own circle might pull the ground out from under me. I had drawn a line, I had defended it, and I had survived the fallout. The new tenants thrived in the space. They hosted small dinner parties, sent polite maintenance emails, and once even left me a handwritten thank you note for keeping the property in such good condition. I read that note twice. Respect feels different when it's mutual. Through scattered updates, I learned Kai and Jordan's separation became official. The financial strain, the unpaid contractor balances, the sudden shift from marble countertops to peeling laminate, all of it compounded the cracks that were already there. Jordan moved in with a friend temporarily. Kai picked up extra work. He called me once, months later, asking if I would meet him for coffee. I hesitated before saying yes. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. No marble in sight, no gold hardware, just chipped wooden tables and the smell of espresso. He looked older, not dramatically, just aware. I thought I was building something impressive, he said after a long pause. You were, I replied calmly, just not the thing you thought. He stared into his cup. I should have stopped it. I knew it was wrong. Yes, I said. I didn't soften it. I didn't rush to comfort him. Growth requires discomfort. I guess I thought you'd always cushion the fall, he admitted quietly. And there it was again. The role I'd unconsciously played for years. The one who absorbs impact so others don't feel it. I'm not the safety net, I said. I'm the owner. It wasn't cruel. It was factual. He nodded, accepting it in a way he hadn't before. The conversation didn't end in reconciliation. It ended in understanding. And sometimes that's enough. At family gatherings now, the tension still exists, but it's quieter. My parents treat me differently. There's caution in their tone, a subtle respect that wasn't there before. They no longer suggest I just smooth things over. They no longer assume I'll bend for the sake of harmony. Harmony without fairness is just silence under pressure. Financially, the duplex has become more than I ever expected. The increased rent doesn't just cover expenses, it accelerates my own independence. I paid off my remaining student loans. I expanded my savings. I started planning for a second property. Ironically, the marble that was meant to trap me became the foundation for my next step. Sometimes I stand in that kitchen between tenant transitions and run my fingers across the cool countertop. It's beautiful, I won't deny that, but it's also a reminder. They thought they were clever. They thought they could force my hand by making the decision irreversible. They thought family loyalty would outweigh self-respect. They were wrong. Some people call what I did harsh. Maybe it was. But harshness is often just clarity without apology. I didn't destroy their lives. I didn't sue for damages. I didn't retaliate emotionally. I gave them options that reflected reality. They just didn't like the math. As I deposited another rent check and watched my savings grow, I realized something deeper than satisfaction. I felt steady, grounded. Not because I won, but because I stopped playing by unspoken rules that never served me. Love without boundaries is exploitation waiting for a moment. Generosity without consent is vulnerability disguised as virtue. They tried to send me the bill for their ambition. Instead, they paid the price of their entitlement.